Let me show you the kind of activity we got going on in the studio today. Here comes Cat Cam. Look at this guy. Huh? Haven't got him in there yet? Look at this. Look at this. Sleeping. Lazy. That's what this is. Corbin, you're lazy. Cute as a button, though. Terrible. Terrible. Let him sleep, Christopher. Okay, I will. Hi. Welcome to the stream. This is One Page Story Extravaganza, episode 152 this year. My name is Christopher Runsman. I sign things as Run C Man because that way people can come close to pronouncing my name. I guess. Yeah, so what happens here is people give me suggestions and ideas, and I try to do one-page stories from them daily. What? Look at that. So, if you got a random idea that comes through your head, let me know, and we'll figure out what we can do with that. I am on number 213 since the start of the year. So I didn't start January 1st, but a few days into it. But anyhow, 213 is so far this year. So we're having fun. Hey, how you doing, Art Curious? Welcome aboard. I'm going to move my screen over here because I got it on the other side of the monitors for some reason. I got a couple monitors and it was way over there, just way over there. Okay, so this is today's page. It is Stephen becomes a fashion designer. Okay, so this is the third of these that I've done so far, and I was just checking in on Ann Lahr's channel, and she suggested a new idea that I put down in the book, which is Frankenstein as a hairdresser. Come on, that's too fun. I'm going to switch cameras for a quick second. In a second. Here we go. Here's my overhead. So this is the One-Page Comic Extravaganza book that we put out last year. This was my 30th book. Craziness. And so what this entire book is page after page of one-page stories and various media as we go, as suggested by people, and I would do those. And so a couple of them, this is Stephen Goes to Kindergarten. So this is Frankenstein as a 5-year-old boy. And this is another page. I'll get to it. I'll find it. It's in here. I know it is. Where I put it? There it is. This is Frankenstein. This is Stephen goes for his driver's license. And so this is the Frankenstein monster as a teenager. And so the Frankenstein, or Stephen becomes a fashion designer, is like Frankenstein in his early 20s. But I like the idea of Frankenstein as a hairdresser. My whole point with any of these is that I never call him Frankenstein. I call him Stephen. And I put him in these different roles just because I can and have fun playing on different conceptions of the Frankenstein mythology. And even though Frankenstein's actually the scientist and not the monster. So, we're getting there. Okay, what am I missing out on? So we've got, Art Curious is joining us. Hi. And hi, Aditi, how are you? Oh, Denise is with you. Hi, both ladies. It's very nice, yes. Hi, Denise. Okay, so normally I start off with talking about the page from the day before. So that's what the Stephen Becomes a Fashion Designer page is. And then the original art I put up on, it's, once I scan things and put them into the robot, and then I do coloring and matting and so on and so forth in that format. But the originals, I post those on Patreon and also on Substack. So if you're on my Substack, then today you got all of last week's pages, plus the suggestions and who they're from, and what my crazy thinking was behind the making of those pages. So that went out today for last week. I'm a little behind on those, but I'm getting better. But we're kept up by week. It's just I don't get it out on Monday like I want it to. So Monday's usually hectic. Yeah, so that's some of the stuff going on. Big thanks to David and James for the big support as Patreon patrons for the last few years. Let's see, what I'm missing stuff. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up. Hey, it's Chris. How you doing? Welcome aboard. And Candy. How you doing, Candy? Hey there. I like that. Hey there. It's like the I was thinking of Peter Gabriel's song. It starts, hi there. Okay, so I'm wearing 2 pairs of glasses because I'm styling like that. Okay, let's just get this out of the way before we go any further. For those of you that know, I shaved. All right, so let's just get through that so you don't spend the whole stream going, what happened to his face? Yeah. All right. I'm ridiculous. Okay, and Chris says Wednesday is a free day from school, but I'm already marking quizzes. Oh my goodness, that's not fair. That's not fair. But good for you to be able to do it by the pool. I take it, Chris, is where you usually do that. So, or where you usually should do that. All right, I've got some books to show you today from the old library, and this is another thing that I usually do for those just joining us. So, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 9 bookshelves in my studio because I'm a lunatic. And so I collect a lot of different art books. It's almost entirely an art, sequential art library. So I'm trying to show people a few things I try each day at this point, and just because I got a lot to go through. And, why not? So this is Otomo Katsuhiro. And this is the Akira Club, this book here. And what this actually is a collection of all kinds of sketches and artwork that he did in preparation for his Akira film and his Akira graphic novel. And so it's just a chock-a-block with all kinds of fantastic goodness. And I really, this film, when it came out in the 1980s, was such a massive impact on the animation market globally that it still stands up today. For look at the detail and quality. It's absolutely bonkers. Now the film is basically almost like a volume of the series, and a 6-volume series, and each of those books are like that thick. So this is lots and lots and lots of stuff. So I really enjoy this. It's got some beautiful work in here, like the cross hatching on the airplanes and things like that. So yep. Like it very much. The ISBN, for those that are interested, is, there's 2. ISBN-10 is 1-59307-741-6. So that's that one. And another book that I really enjoyed is The Essential X-Men. Now, this book here, a lot of people focus on certain time periods for the X-Men books when they were coming out, and they overshadowed this one. This is Paul Smith's period, and he has an absolutely beautifully clean line that his penciling has, and subsequently his inking as well, by the way. But it's just a really nice and clean approach to storytelling. But the reason that I have this on a certain bookshelf in my studio is that I collect everything by this one team's appearances. What's going on? You all right? Corbin's up. He's back here behind me coughing. Hey, you all right? Better? Just gonna cough it out, I guess. Okay. Last book. This is sorry, I'll try to keep up, guys. Oh yeah. Chris never stops. She's always she's a great teacher though. Didi, thanks for sharing today. Enjoyed your stream. Yeah, Didi's streams are the best. She's incredibly supportive and encouraging of an entire community of people, and I think that's really commendable. Oh, hey, how you doing, Terry? Welcome aboard. Great to have you here. Jesus, you're welcome. So that's nice. Loisel, Loisel, French. Loisel has done his interpretation of Peter Pan, and it is something else. It takes place. It's a European book. It's really elegantly animated. The lines are really interesting. All kinds of different techniques in here with cross hatching and stippling and stuff like that you don't see a lot of in North American comics. And just a really, really fine storyteller. And his version of Peter Pan starts in the streets of Paris and moves over to Never Never Land. And it's great. It's really great stuff. And it's This isn't a version necessarily for you to read with kids because, I mean, the crocodile's absolutely terrifying. And the Tinkerbell's a little flirty, but it's still a really interesting rendition of the work. So, and it comes in this crazy crocodile pattern book. So, ISBN for this is 978-1-908-030-07-8. Okay, so that's our books for today. All right, gang. So listen, recently I did a whole bunch of jelly-plated papers, and so that's what some of this stuff is. And I did Baker's Dozen, and so ever since then, I have been rolling through these things and doing different pages on them. And so some of the pages that you might have seen recently, let's see if I can find some in the stack. When I finish a page, I just throw it in the stack. I got a stack. It's like this is on a jelly-plated paper. The work for the letters versus numbers as characters that I did the other day. I think that was yesterday. Boy, I lose track of time. Regular paper. But this is also on a jelly-plated paper. And so some of the stuff that you get when you're doing the jelly plating in the first place, it gives you these really wonderful textures and colors that you can work from. So when you're doing some jelly plating, if it isn't successful, that's great, in my opinion, because if it isn't successful and it looks just like a sort of motley mess, put it aside, because really that's a fantastic foundation for you to draw on top of. You know, the only thing that really stands through here is the text that was on the thing I tried to transfer, and I think this is one of the first things I did. So the rest of it didn't turn out at all, but I got the title on there. So that worked out kind of nice. That's regular paper. That's regular paper. That's regular paper. Oh, this is another one. There we go. So this is one that we got to take this forest that I put down to the jelly plating and then add more elements on top, and then the kids in the foreground. Use that for a story. And then Neighbors in the Sky is a similar sort of thing with black and white jelly plating that didn't turn out. So, you know, regular paper. So, yeah, my point is the jelly plating is a fantastic foundation to work on. I'm missing stuff. I'm sorry. Chris says, I'd like the version of Peter Pan to be an angel of death for kids collecting young souls. Oh, that's interesting. I've seen a number. I actually have a number of different versions of Peter Pan. It's a weird little sub collection that I have. There was a series of comic books that didn't finish. Now, The Lost Boys, as a reinterpretation of Peter Pan, has been done 5 or 6 times by different authors and different illustrators. But I have one where Peter's a vampire, and the Lost Boys are vampires. And then, of course, one of the other conceptions of that was in the film The Lost Boys with Kiefer Sutherland and all those guys. They were vampires, and it was the same. But the underlying motif is the never having to grow up and always holding on to, you know, the vanity of youth, right? Like the idea of you're young and perfect at this age, and you know you haven't been tarnished by the world. So when they do things like have it be a vampire story, I think that it's fun, but they sometimes lose the point. I like the idea of Peter Pan as a angel of death for kids. Chris says the movie The Lost Boys is great. It's a cult movie now. Chris, are you suggesting Peter Pan to be an angel of death for kids as a one-page idea? Because we can do that, you know. Today's suggestion, by the way, and I can't remember who it's from, and I apologize for that, but I left my book of tricks in the van, and Lori has the van right now. So I remember the suggestion. I just don't remember who it was from. I apologize. I'll get that on there, I promise. But so I thought we'd do Fear in the Streets on this piece of jelly plating paper, and you can see there is a partially successful transfer. And again, these are ones that I'm learning how to do it, of a lady. I think it's a lady. And rather surprised looking reaction. So that kind of fits for Fear in the Streets thing. We can push that out. All right, I will write it down, Chris, and and put it in the book as soon as I pick it up out of the car. What do we got again? It's Peter Pan as an angel of death. For kids no less. I like that a lot. It's an interesting idea for sure. Chris Clue. All right, so as far as it goes for shaving off my old whiskers, Lori didn't even notice when she got up this morning, but before she went into the office. Isn't that silly? Chris says, I might be able to be here on the Friday stream. Well, then I think maybe we should try to do it on Friday. What do you think? Hi, Janet. How are you? Everybody behave. Janet's here. Get the rulers out. Where's the rulers, Corbin? He's back to sleep already. He was coughing a minute ago, and now he's already knocked himself back out again. What a guy, huh? But at least I can, at a moment's notice, at a very moment's notice, I can do this. Hold on. I'll show you again. Ready? Here. Cat cam. It doesn't work when he's just a lump like that, but, the idea is there. That is like the most weak in the knee kind of a special feature that could ever be on a channel. Cat cam. Yeah, and he sleeps through it. He doesn't care anyways. Okay, so Fear in the Streets is the one-page suggestion today. So with this page that I have here, because there's, this all this nice and kind of gritty and dirty information, but at the same time, there's similar gritty and dirty information within the part that did somewhat successfully transfer. So I think we're going to carry this, rather than cleaning it up too much, we're going to carry this motif throughout. So I've got my green doodly doing pencil, but a minute ago I grabbed a bunch of different markers. And this one's name is Dave. This is Larry. And so I think this is how we might go about doing this. So we got a couple different values there. And we'll start with this. And we'll start crack-a-lacking. Diddy's back. Da-da-da-da. So, yeah. So if anybody has one-page ideas like Anne's throwing at me today and Chris is throwing down, that's great. I really appreciate those. It's a lot of fun. And any of the one-page suggestions or one-page ideas that you hear being given during the stream, or if you go on the Instagram or Facebook or your YouTube or wherever you're following and look at all the previous ones that I've done, I fully encourage people to do their own interpretation of whatever idea they might see. Because I love, Terry did one the other day. Was it yesterday? It was probably yesterday. Of yesterday's or today's page that I posted was Frankenstein, tan and lavender were the three words I had. And Terry did an awesome page of that. So it was so great. She says she stole them from me. I don't think it's stealing. I think it's just it's open to everybody to interpret from. So if anybody ever sees those things and wants to try it out, by all means, please do. You know what? I'm gonna get rid of the pencil. No need to be precious here, folks. We're all in this together. Let's just get crack-a-lacking. What I am gonna grab though is some paint markers, because we want to push some of these yellow values in for our light areas, right? Now this are cheap dollar store pens because they work. And what is it? Terry, give this big smiley face. And Terry says, "Thank you. I'm glad you liked it." Oh, I love them. I really enjoy your 3 prompt pages. So, okay, so I've got this book that I bought in Toronto recently when we were there for a conference, and it's if you have an opportunity to find something like this for yourself and you are interested in drawing faces, or even if you're interested in I wouldn't recommend buying this and then cutting it apart, but you could photostat these pages and use those to put into your mixed media work, your collage work. And there's so many different people at different ages and different ethnicities, and it's pretty great. I have been sticking to using the cover, so I'm going to draw this image here. As soon as I get through all the cover faces, I'll get more in the book. But look at all these faces. I realize that some of these character walkthrough are actually inside the book, but there's so many good faces on that book I want to get through, on that book cover alone. Janet says, I have this book, and it's so good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. So so I'm going to do is, I hopefully you can see there where the marks are going to turn out, and that is good because that's ideally what we want. So I'm going to draw, with the markers, and at the same time I'm going to use some of these paint markers as well to push back the values. So I hope everybody's having a good day. I was really quite taken with the idea that was put forward about a zine swamp, and that Janet, I think it's Janet that's primarily organizing it, or Janet and Dee Dee anyways, but that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. I like that a lot, and I think that people are going to have a good old time doing that. So, all right, are you working? He's working. So, maybe not. Oh, look at all that paint. That's all right. We're just going to smush it in the face. Punch back the value around here for a minute. And we'll bring it back up again. I'm going to stop using that in case I got some drunk and switch over to the postcard. So if anybody has any announcements about any fun stuff they got going down, or anything that they're working on right now that they want to tell us about, please feel free to do so. This is a free space. And or if you got a stream coming up that you want people to dial into with you, let me know. We'll tell everybody about it. For anybody who's interested, Jim Luhan is doing an episode tonight of, hey man, how's your movie going? So it's 7 p.m. PST and 10 p.m. EST. Now, that's too late for me to watch, Christopher. I know. But you can watch it tomorrow. You don't necessarily have to watch it while it's streaming. Unless you want to fit a whole bunch of different silly jokes in there while they're doing the stream. Otherwise, you have to put those in the comments after. All right, it's not the same thing. Because you don't get them to giggle or lose their place and laugh and react. Not that I do those things. I wouldn't do those things. I don't make silly jokes. I don't believe that myself. All right, so I'm putting in the first face here, and from that little square that I showed you. Yesterday was 3 prompt Tuesday. 3 prompt Tuesday. And we'll see. I might do a 3 prompt Thursday. just because. And the suggestion for the next 3 prompts that I got was boisterous, blinking, and beavers, which I understand that Denise was just dying to do. She's like, boisterous and blinking, beavers, sign me up for that. And I'm like, oh. I never, Dee pointed this out this morning, I never accept, when she lets people switch, I never accept the choose anything ones. I never accept those categories because that's not it. It's just me choosing myself, as opposed to having to figure out how to fit blinking into a page. Blinking boisterous beaver. Yeah, you know, easy. I don't know. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, and we'll do it together. So, as far as it goes for when I'm doing one-page stories, I generally, and this is maybe a little counterintuitive, but hey, it's how I work. I generally start to come up with a narrative as I'm working. Like I tend to go in relatively blind to what it is that I'm doing, and then what that affords me is the opportunity to figure out things and new things and things that I might not have considered if I tried to pre-plan an image, but I do that on the fly. And so the suggestions are generally a really good start to a narrative idea. But once I start that first panel, it starts coming together. What am I missing? You're laughing at me. I did something silly. For the zine swap, there won't be any trading out, so you're stuck. That's fine. I think I'm okay. I'll try the prompt game in December, but I already know what I'll do for the scavenger hunt. Yeah, when's the scavenger hunt start? I'm going to do that this year. Yep. My phone was yelling at me. Just had to make sure it wasn't about the blood sugar. What is a trading out, Janet? That means you can't switch to 3 different prompts. You got to do the 3 you're given. I never trade out. Well, except for anything, any anything you want to do thing. Diddy lets me get away from those, but you watch. I'm going to get prompts from Janet like milk. She's going to get me. Just see it. You're welcome. Sometimes when you're doing X amount of things, like Terry does an extensive amount of one-page pieces, like she can just knock, and they're great. The one that she did about the woodpecker today just cracked me up. Because the best part of that was, of course, the third animal in the mix of this narrative that was being kept up by this woodpecker just noddling away on the tree. So love it. She's very proficient. You know, just kicking them out there. Okay, so fear in the streets. So here's our establishing panel. This may well be our narrator, who is starting to identifiably take us through some of the challenges about the streets today. Hey, I know this is a weird request, and I don't do these a lot, but a good friend of mine's son just had to have surgery and had to have screws put in his legs and hips, and he's 9, and so that's a rough spot. So if people don't mind, I know recently I asked about some prayers for my niece, but if people don't mind keeping him in your heart, that'd be nice. I just know you don't like the blank ones. Yeah, it's the blank ones that she lets me get away from. That's what it is. Janet will start the list for the scavenger hunt soon. I got so much junk in my studio, I bet you'll find a lot of it here. I'll be ready by midwinter. April. I'm usually pretty sick of it. Yeah, please just keep him in your thoughts. I appreciate that. Only because of the advice and encouragement I get from all the fibs. Before I met this lot, I never shared my work with anyone. That's a common thing. I mean, that's a really common thing. It's important for anybody that has a creative bent and is following a creative path that you have got to have a modicum of comfort in a community or of others that you can feel comfortable enough to share with. And that can be really challenging, right? Because some people, oh, that's great, but there's really this actual competitive edge to them that, they're saying nice things, but at the same time, they're like, behind your back. And if there's one thing that I just can't get over with this, the blessing it is to have met this larger community here online, is that it's truly people that just enjoy creative expression and interaction with others that are doing the same. And that, you got to sing the praises of that. That's for sure, because there is enough people out there that see everything as some sort of, whatever you're doing is somehow invalidating or challenging whatever it is that they're doing. And so they see, they'll carry on. And I've yet to see that amongst everybody here. So thank you so much for all being so cool. Okay, so if you see me dabbing my finger in it, I wash my hands after, but I do this all the time. And the reason that I do this is that I'll put value down, but I like building things up. So I'll put something down and then I'll use the tip of my finger. And was that showing? Use the tip of my finger and I'll diffuse it, or I'll dap my finger on top of it, and it pushes that value back a little bit. But at the same time, the initial stain that's in a pigment will actually still sit in the page. But it's by doing it this way and then building up these little hits of value, it allows us to get a little bit more shape and form and depth in the value. So if you're wondering why in the world is he always getting paint in his hands, that's why. I was late for this year, but I'll be on the lookout for the next one. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, thank you so much, Janet. That's the beauty of the fibs. Oh, yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Friends in the box, rock. You can't even compare, because what would be the criteria? I can't do what any of you can do the way you do it. Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. It's absolutely fantastic because everybody has some sort of degree of proficiency in all these different things, right? So, that's nice. It's a really nice thing. I certainly do need to enjoy sharing that, even if it's how I wanted it to be. Oh, yeah. Put it out there. There's no, look at that. You smooched it right in the eye. There's something that I've usually said when I've been in a class talking to kids, or when I've been talking to people with some of the publishing stuff or the comic jams that I run. I'm often saying to people, if you hold back because it's not perfect, it's never going to come out. If you hold back because, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda, I would have done this, this, and this. Well, you didn't this time, but look what you have done. So put that out and go at it again later if you want to, and do it in a different way. There's a great deal of people that I've known over the years that have all kinds of intentions for doing something, in a larger sense in their lives, and they never get to it. And it's almost universally because they're being way too scrutinizing on what they're producing. So, sorry I missed a bit. My mom popped in. Hi, Candy's mom. Sorry. Yeah, people are going to figure out that I'm a weirdo. So, so if you're doing stuff and let's go, let's see it, let's do it. A lot of what creativity is just the necessitation of communication that we have inside of us, and the need and want to reach out to others. It's a completely natural state, but you're hard pressed to be able to do that if you don't enact upon it, like if you don't actualize. So put the work out. What's somebody going to say? I don't like it. So what? If you asked them, well, you asked if they liked it. So you're going to get some expectation or a response. But if you didn't ask them, who cares? Who cares if they like it or not? Art Curious says, Art Curious is, okay, I'll call you Art Curious unless you want to let everybody know what your real name is. Unless everybody else but me already does, I'm sorry. The better thing is to share when you fail and how you fix it. That teaches a lot, yeah. Chris says, I met all the fibs like a year ago now. Great people, artists, and more important, friends. That touches the heart. That's fantastic. Miriam. I got to write it down because that's where my brain is these days. Miriam. It's a wonderful name. Janet says, if I ever act like I'm reaching out, you have my permission to ignore me. I'm beyond reaching out. Someone might come over. Well, we don't want that. We're just going to stick to stocking you at Walmart. Candy says, I'm looking forward to trying Inktober this year. Oh, yeah. Dee's done some good Inktober's in the past few years that she's shown on their stream. It's a lot of fun. Dee says, thank you so much. With a Y. Dee, there we go. iPad hates me. It's either iPads or Siri or all kinds of things that people have a challenge with when, you're doing that whole, hey, robot, type this for me. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing. What color was I using for the dark values? So let's just put some lapels in here on her shirt, and then we'll get down to pushing our narrative. So one of the things that I do enjoy about the opportunities that are presented in using the jelly plating, jelly plated paper, I don't know what to call it, is that they give you these little textures and they give you these little wonderful pieces of information that we can incorporate into our images. That's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend people do their jelly plating incorrectly so that they have all kinds of smudged up papers to use for other things. And it's completely legitimate if you say to people, yeah, I meant for it to look that way. It's so I can use it to draw on. In case other people go, your jelly plating is terrible. Miriam says, that's why I use my phone for the chat. I'm doing illustration in my iPad. Nice. It's a good plan, says Dee. I don't have an iPad. I have a big old fashioned PC, but what I do have is two 12 inch, good heavens, 12 inch tall by 18 inch wide drawing monitors that I can digitally draw right on the screen. And I have two because one of them stopped wanting to be a drawing monitor and said, nope, I just want to be a TV. Or, well, I guess a monitor, but. So I showed it a lesson and got it a new best friend. But those are what I do the Photoshop stuff on, where I'm putting the text on pages, or where I'm doing, coloring of the panels and stuff like that. So works for me. Okay, so I've switched to a different green here, a lighter green, and even though I went over the area with the yellow and pushed out some of these speckles of information, I like them. So I'm going to put some of it back in. I was talking to somebody who was talking about matching colors and values today. And then Ann Laura on her channel, she has this big book where you can do color swatches with your mark making materials so you can figure out colors, which I think is really practical for people. So I've been doing things for a while, so I tend to have a kind of a grasp on that. But if you can find a tool like that for yourself, there's great benefit to it. All right, so now we're going to put some of these light yellow hits. Now, I'm not filling the entire area with a lot of times when people are coloring, they'll fill the entire area with the value, but I'm not doing that right now. I'm finding what I call the emphasis points. And so if you can get those emphasis points in, one of the great things about the human eyeball is that it tries to fill in that other information for us, which is unnecessarily complicating. But what it actually offers you is, as a visual creator, you want people to linger on your page for a moment and for their eyes to have to work out for a couple of seconds to give your brain those hits of information so that you can put it together. Because as a person who's making visual images, it encourages, you like that word instead of forces, encourages your viewers to stay with something for a second longer. So allow yourself to fall into that complexity of mark making. Allow yourself to be relatively messy or complicated. Okay, I'm going to hold it up for the camera. So you can see how some of the gradations working in the face a little bit there, and it sort of gives us that, we want that tension, that sense of dramatic impetus at the start, so that when this person as our active narrator, our narrative voice, through the remains of this page in the story that's going to come out of fear in the streets, we sort of set an emotional context at the start, right? And oh, thank you, Miriam. That's very nice of you. So if you can do that in a narrative, if you can right off the hop try to establish at least one thing, whether it's the context for your narrative, like where's this taking place, and with sequential art, like I'm using here, where it's both words and pictures, if I don't show that visually, I can have the characters say it textually. Or if I show it visually, I don't have to say it textually. So there's a benefit to that, right? Your people pop off the page so quickly. Oh, thanks, Stevie. That's very nice. And when Chris is drawing, I think it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. It just starts appearing from the top down. Yeah, it's called a tractor on a page is what I do. So a lot of times, and if this is a benefit to you, then do this. Utilize this. But there's a lot to be said for sitting down, okay, and with a piece of paper, taking a mark-making tool of some kind, and to sit down and to structure out the face, and to figure out where the hairline's going to be, and to figure out all of these different elements as you go, and to put that in. And if that works for you, if that's a benefit to you, there's nobody to say to you that that's wrong. Now, in my head, I do this work, behind the scenes. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know. But Miriam says I had the same sensation. So I, rather than building the structure, in my head, I've kind of got the structure there. And so I just sort of tractor down the image and just sort of fill it in as I go, because in my mind, I've already got it, the blueprint for it there. But that's from X amount of time practicing it. So that comes to everybody if they just give themselves a moment. So Chris will be right back. Not so I have to draw. Otherwise, the butt will get too big. Well, that's what happens when you're always drawing butts. Yeah. Oh, my butts. Anyways. Okay, so we've got our first identifiable image, our first panel, even though that there's really no border on this. Whether I choose to border it after I scan it and format it as a page and put the text on it digitally, we'll decide then. But right now, it doesn't have one. Okay, so let's do our next face. And so I want to keep some degree of uniformity to, I want to fix her eye. Pop that eye just a little bit there. If you put these little highlights in the eyes of just strong contrasting values, a dark and a light, then it makes them, the extremists of those two things come forward. So with that, there's a little more intensity in that look. So intense. All right, so let's continue the narrative of explanation here, and we'll have the same face. And I've got this other little picture over here. So this is the one we just utilized. Okay. And I brought her face a little bit closer and not tilted so far back because it was a little extreme to me. So now we're going to try this one. All right. So what I'm trying to establish is fear in the streets. It's one thing to have this fearful look initially, but we have different emotional responses to things. And so how do I carry that forward so that, because you're not just going to spend when you have time afraid, there's the immediate moment, but then there's your secondary response to that when it comes to whatever that stimulus was to make you afraid. Maybe it was a spider. Maybe it was shoppers at Walmart, Janet. I don't know what it could have been. Maybe it was the daunting task of animating your own new feature film like Jim Luan's doing. Did I mention Jim's show tonight? Did I do that already? If I didn't, let me know, because I'll tell you about it. It's a lot of fun. He's a really funny guy. Did I say Janet out loud? Did I say that? Did I? I have this visual image in my head of Janet stalking people and stalking Walmart, and anybody that crosses that path, she gives them a stern look and they move out of the aisle. If you don't think the Walmartians are scary, there's something wrong with you. Every time, Lori thinks this is absolutely funny. And for those that don't know, Lori is my partner. She's pretty fabuloso. If every time we go to Walmart, I end up having to get something down for someone. Every single time. In any different one that we go to. Doesn't matter. Whenever I walk into one of those places. And it's because they put stock up so high. Now, I appreciate that they're trying to get as much stuff out for people, but come on. Nobody can reach that high for the cat litter that isn't shaped like a gorilla like me. So every time we go to get dry food, for wet food for the cats, there you go. I'm moving somebody's boxes of kitty litter down for them. Lori rocks. Yeah, she's pretty great. Have you started the Jan Karen book that you're reading, Dee Dee, in your circulation of, 9, 10 books, however many you're reading in the moment? That's one of Lori's absolute favorites. So, all right, so we've got the same character. We've tried to keep the same scaling. Candy says, yeah, I'm so short. I'm always doing that. You're always making people get stuff down for you? There you go. I just climb on the shelves. It's in the lineup. Okay. Excellent. Excellente. Okay, so here is our second emotive reaction from our principal. And so I'm just putting some little diffuse lines in there. And her face. You're in the first chapter of that book. Oh, fantastic. I always get asked to reach things for people. Do you get that as well? Oh my gosh. I've climbed. I'm getting too old to climb. Yeah, if I'm ever bored for something to do, which never happens, but if I'm ever bored for something to do, I'll just drive over to Walmart and just hang around in the kitty litter aisle. I'm just waiting to help unsuspecting folks that can't reach. And then I'll tip my hat and say, ma'am, and ride off on a horse. Judy says, I'm determined to read all of the Harry Potter before the end of the year. Oh, that's a lot of fun. I read those to the kids when they first came out, and I tried to do all the voices for them. It was pretty ridiculous, but we really enjoyed this. Terry says, yes, I'm 5'10". Wow, that's pretty tall. And Miriam says, I always need someone to get things for me. You'll get through them quick, dude. They're fun and you'll want to keep reading. Well, I'm enjoying the new ones, the Newt Scamander films. Those have been a lot of fun. I wish that they'd been books as well, because that would be interesting to read. Because it's a good character. It's all about this moral journey that they're on. I don't bounce like I used to. Tall people are my heroes. Oh, there you go. And Miriam says, I'm in a wheelchair. Oh my. Well, I hope everything's okay, Miriam, and I hope that people are able to help you get your cat litter down and other things as well, because that's challenging. A lot of things, they're not made for any time that we have, additional challenges than the norm, and they'll put things up so ridiculously high. It's something else. My niece Kate is in her chair full time, and it's phenomenal. I didn't realize until Kate was born that there's so many places you just can't get into. They just don't build them for everybody. All the kids read them. Even my mom read them when she was in her 80s. Nice. It's okay. Just I'm used to. Try to get out, but my back don't agree. Oh, I understand that. Yep. I used to have to use a cane when I first. I was in my late 20s when the nervous system disorder that I have, which is why my hands are crooked, right? When that first kicked in, I had to relearn how to walk again. So I started with the walker with the wheels and cane, and I still keep that cane because I am a humble 5'18", and it is impossible to find canes for people my height. So just in case anything happens, I got it. Miriam says, oh, yeah, a lot of stories for your one page. Oh, hey, throw them at me. By all means, you are welcome. You can put them in the comments on things, or in the chat, or wherever you feel inspired. Yeah, I like them one-page suggestions. Here's some exciting news. My brother-in-law is coming at the end of the month for the weekend. And if anybody has ever seen a stream where John and I are hanging out, I usually draw a hockey player during our stream, because that's what he asked me to do. And it's a lot of fun. But John will be joining me on a stream at the end of the month. And I'm really, really excited about that. We have a great old time. John lives in Paris, Ontario. How exotic is that, eh? We live in London. He lives in Paris. Ooh. Ontario, yeah. But John will be joining me, and he comes to visit us every now and then throughout the year. And he comes down from, he lives at a Sensitive, it's a deaf blind institute. It's a lot of fun. We have a great old time. Jerry says, my daughter had both legs amputated last through diabetic complications, so we're learning all the trials and difficulties of being disabled. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry to hear that, Terry. How did you find a tall cane? I came across one day. I came across one. It's just, your cane needs to sit at your hip, okay? So it needs to sit where the side of your hip is. And so this one is more pronounced in its length. So as soon as I saw that thing, I couldn't really afford it when I bought it. But it's this lovely hardwood cane, and has a proper handle in it. And yeah, I can't. I even though I don't intend to have to use it again, I keep it just in case I might. Right? Terry, I'm type 1 diabetic. So that's the outcome of my nervous system disorder. I just usually shut off my pancreas, and I'm type 1. I discovered that handicap accusable is relative after Jim was in a wheelchair. Also, how valuable handicap parking is. Handicap accusable? Accessible. I think it is accessible. He's probably serious. Okay, local pilots. Yeah, please do. Feel free to send them my way. Like, cats were hungry. Do not mess with the cats. When they're hungry, they'll bite you. Stayed in a hotel that was handicap accessible. One ramp at the office, and the bathroom doors weren't wide enough. I can imagine. I can imagine. Surprising the things you don't think about until you're in a situation. That's for sure. Just came back from Madrid. First time in a wheelchair is not easy. No, that would be challenging. Wonderful. Look at that support. Oh no. Yeah, that stinks. My wife rented us a Airbnb room when we went to Toronto one time. Not the last time, but it was on the 42nd floor. And it just has nothing to do with accessibility other than the fact that if there was a fire, we're all done. But I'm afraid of heights. I know it's ridiculous to be 5'18" and afraid of heights, but I am. So you can imagine I never went anywhere near the exterior walls of this place. It's fine there. She's adjusted fine. We just need a council finds a ground floor adapted flat. Yeah, that's where my sister and my niece live. It's in one of those. It's fine. Oh, I'm sorry. I put that up. She's type 2 but insulin dependent. Okay, yeah. Takes time. It sure does. Been there, done that. MNW. I'm terrible at anagrams. I'm sorry. You should be criminal. It's hard enough to travel when you're handicapped. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. There's not enough consideration into that, largely because of, it's extra expense for them to have to put in this thing, or even worse than that, they just don't consider it at all. The hotel we just stayed in for this conference in Toronto, you've got option A or option B. You've got a flight of, I think I counted 28 steps up one route to the front door, or you've got this fantastic 60-meter sloping walk to the front doors, up a rampway where you got the cars and cabs coming in beside you. Brutal. Uh-oh. Yeah, it's challenging. It really is challenging. Look out, everybody. He's here. The man, the myth, the magic, Mr. Jim Luan. I've let everybody know about your very special stream tonight. Is there anything you want to tell anybody else about that any further, Mr. Luan? For those that don't know, hold on a second. Hold on a hot minute. Hi, bud. You're awake. Are you up? These, believe it, are films by Jim. These are a number of his animations, and love them. I really do. I really enjoy Jim's work. And this is a film that he did with Bill Plimpton. So fantastic. But these are really, really great by a really, really talented creator. And I highly recommend you check out Jim's work. JamLujan. I pretend you can do so. I just need to put some more money. There's so much she's capable of doing what I have to do it for because she's. Yeah, that's rough. That's rough. I'm sorry that you're going through all that. Boy, oh boy, it's a challenge. It sure is. We're when Lori and I got married, we picked a hall, the Elsie Perrin Williams estate. It's a big old estate house with a Spanish villa style to it here in London. You don't see a lot of those, but because up in Canada, those roofs aren't necessarily built for the snow. So anyhow, so we chose where we got married, where we chose to get married where we did. One, because we didn't want to do a church wedding. Our marriage was our second marriage for each of us, because we both made the same mistake the first time. And so we wanted something different than what we did before. And we chose a place that we're absolutely sure had the easiest ramp right into the location. So it's very hard. Times yeah. There you go. You're afraid of heights as well? Well, there you go. I try not to even look up. If I'm standing at a curb, I don't look down. I mean, that's a long way from me. Uh-oh, somebody's calling Dee Dee. Who is it? My middle is high function. My youngest is nonverbal, 18, but mentally 3. Oh, that's challenging. But probably just a joy, though, right? Like, just, you know, my oldest son is 28 now. Oh, my God. And he's in the spectrum, and he's high functioning, and he lives in his own place now. And, you know, there's some work and some effort there, but he's his own person. He's got more in the bank than I do. He's really good with saving and planning for himself, and he's engaged, and he's got a good peer group that he gets together, and he likes that gaming stuff, and he works at the bookstore that I used to manage, and he's thriving there. He's really doing well there, and really quite pleased. And he's single, ladies. Oh, there you go, Ken. He's a hoot. So funny. Mostly happy. There you go. My brother-in-law, John, his roommate, Christopher, is similar, right? I mean, he's in his, I think he might be 40, maybe. I know he's at least in his late 30s, but he's largely nonverbal sounds and stuff, right? But we love him. He's great. We always make sure we give him Christmas presents and say hi to him, come up and visit. Because John's other roommate, Yemen, who's also blind like John, and deaf as well. But I go up and I play hockey with the fellas, but I play in the parking lot at the facility there, or in the gym, and we have a great time. But you know, I always make sure to bring up something for Chris too. Because he can't engage in that stuff, and that's not fair. Okay, so here's our second expression for our same character. And like I said before, I do this little dabbing thing because I want to bring up some of these values, and not just necessarily have them as opaque as when I first just apply it down. So, that's wonderful. Sounds like my middle. Oh yeah. You gotta. Kids are crazy. Kids are just crazy in general, and there's no hard, fast rules. I've never believed that. Everybody's kids are different, and even the kids that we all have are different. Lori and I have 5 in our Brady Bunch, and they are so different from one another. It's, for the life of me, I couldn't express just how unlike one another they are, and at the same time, love it. Just absolutely love it. And my oldest grandkid, well, she likes to hang out in the studio. So even though all my kids are too cool for school for what Dad does, I got the next generation dialing in. Well, my oldest grandson's totally a sports guy. He doesn't care. That's what I'm doing in here. No important is accept all no matter what. No son had his own share of difficulties. 36 now, lives at home. There you go. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's necessary. This small group's a perfect example of everyone's dealing with something. It's a good reminder to not judge or make assumptions. Totally true. Absolutely true. There's too much quick drama gra on the shop and compare of, well, my child and my family members are dying. Buddy and Nixie and I go skiing every afternoon. Ugh. Where were we the other day? There was this university student that did a presentation on this long-time psychiatric hospital we had in London, and it's all being torn down now for a new residential area in the city. And this young university student has done this whole report on it and history of it. So we go to this presentation of it at this upscale lodge on the campus, and the whole place was surrounded by all of these different characters that worked there at one point in the 70s or whatever it is. You couldn't see the entire display because literally they're all just sort of just plonked in the middle of the room. And it was the most ridiculous pile of nonsense. I appreciate everybody wants to reminisce and whatever else it is, but the whole point of going to this thing was to be able to see the information and to find out. And so Lori gave me the nudge at one point. After the third time, I said, "Hi, do you think we can get through there?" Because they just stood in the way. And there's this one lady that was, trying to get up to the table, and she can't lean over everybody else because she's in her chair. And it's like, so I just, even though I'd already seen this one table, I purposely went over and stood and went, "Hi, do you mind if we just maybe move you into the center of the room so that we can come up and see?" And, "Oh, well," and they did, they moved. And so she goes, she looks at me and goes like, "Yeah," and pulls up to the table. And I literally just walked away to the other table that I was looking at. It's like, I don't care, but geez. Such a name, very special in her own way. Janet Nod. My oldest is grumpy old man. I swear he was born at 87, aerospace engineer. Fantastic. Took a phone call and the other person appeared in Christopher's page. There you go. Yeah, my one son, I'm not going to point out which one it is, but one of my sons, well, clearly he's not the oldest one, I just expressed was always happy, but he's a stoic. He's a stoic, and he is so self-determined and forthright. And how are things? Things are good. I love him. I love him to pieces. But he's very straightforward. And some people go, "Is he grumpy?" No. It just, he doesn't mince, Doesn't mince words. He just says, "Yeah, everything's fine. I'm looking at my investments." It's just, he's a funny guy. It was magic, did he? It just appeared out of nowhere. Yep. Sorry I'm late. Hey, it's Lizzie. Lizzie? Lizzello, what do you prefer? Everybody's calling you Lizzie. I think it's that. All right. Well, welcome aboard. I forget. My memory is not as great as it might have once ever been. It was never good. All right. So I'm just going to finish off a couple of just little spots of detail just to bring this panel's composition somewhat in line with the one beside it, and then track it out a little bit right there. And so, like I said earlier, if you've tried the jelly plating process and you're getting mixed results, like some of the transfers that you're doing aren't working out as best as maybe you wanted them to, try this sort of approach. Try this utilizing it as a backdrop for what you're working on. Dee Dee told me about you. Oh, no. Lizzie's good. Excellent. Well, welcome aboard, Lizzie. Hey, did you know that Jim Luan has a stream tonight on his channel talking about the process of making his latest animated film? Yeah, check it out. 10 o'clock EST, 7 p.m. PST. That's not postal sales tax, by the way. All right, so we've got a couple of panels now, and so what that affords us in the structure of our page is that now we can have a couple of narrative points that continue through as the person's talking across a couple of panels. Panels in a page of sequential story. Imagine each panel represents a beat in a song. Like if you play your page out as a rhythm, the smaller panels or the more uniform sized panels are this rhythm as it moves through a page, and a big panel tends to be a larger smack like a larger snap, I'm sorry, and a pause, because ideally with a larger panel, people are taking a moment for their eyes to walk around and read the words and to look at all the visual elements. So on that panel, it goes, and then if you've got some more smaller panels, that rhythm resumes. So if people look at a page like that, when you do a couple of panels that are really similar to one another, although you might have a transitional change like the facial expression or something like that, just imagine it as you can have the person say this one thing, and if you change their facial expression or whatever else, it's like an emotional beat has changed. And so you can have this sort of a conversation of, I was afraid, right? And then because you've got this emotional change in the face, now you can say, it made me remember some stuff I didn't want to, or whatever it is. But you can change the emotional development of the story that way. Miriam says, I finally succeeded in an image transfer. What a missed opportunity. Well, finding out these things, all the ones that you've done up until now you can use. Finding out all these different mediums that we can use and all these different approaches that we can take, it sort of allows you to have something creatively outside the box than other people that might be doing something similar to you, but they don't incorporate this element or they don't incorporate that element, right? That's the nice jump. Jim is hilarious, and he agrees with Dee Dee on that. It amazes me, how do you do this and everything fits? I would have to rough it out first, or I'd find there's no room for part when I got half done. Well, okay, so I have a suggestion. I have one visual element on the page, and the rest of this narrative structure I come up with on the fly. And so I think about all the underpinnings of the amount of pages that I've done before. This is my 213th page in the afternoon this year, right? So you tend to think and try different things, but always trying to push the envelope and push different ways of telling stories. Like Jim gave me a suggestion the other day, coincidentally, about having to tell a story that was using numbers and letters as the characters. And so how do I tell a visual story with numbers and letters, right? So you have to think about different things. And often I think what works best is when you come up with a notion, and as you're putting it down on paper, you have to stick that landing now. You have to stick with it. And whether it's the most successful drawing you've ever done or not, doesn't matter, because it really is just about getting it down right now so that you can get on to doing the next panel. And if you afford yourself those opportunities, then it becomes less about having to be overly concerned about structure and more about trusting yourself and just go nuts and just have some fun playing. Here we go for question of the day. Now, Jim usually asks a question of the day, and if he doesn't get to it, Gary Hodges usually does. So, question of the day, everybody. Can you name 2 cities with the same name? Example, Las Vegas, New Mexico, Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, I live in London, Ontario. I've heard there's another one in the British Isles. My brother-in-law lives in Paris, Ontario, or Paris, and I've heard that there's one of those in Europe somewhere. Dinners, you're lurking a while. Nice. There we go. All right, Susan takes up that challenge. Jim, yes, I can. Hi, Susan. Welcome aboard. Miriam says, I do drawings by finding form in abstract jelly plates. That is awesome. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody's saying hi to Susan. Okay, Susan said you can. Lots of those here in Mexico, Jim. Lots of city names originally in Spain, but also famous cities in Mexico. Guadalajara, Jalisco, if I'm saying that right. Mexico, although I do have a friend that says Mexico, and it's Spanish, so I don't know, maybe I'm saying it wrong. There's one in Spain and in Mexico. It's the second biggest city. Isn't that something? Paris, France, Paris, Texas, Cordoba, Argentina, Cordoba, Spain. Go, Susan, go. Paris, France, and Paris, Indiana. There we go. So basically what we're saying, really a lot of us having a picture in you and you just go for it. Yeah, just go for it. That's exactly it, Terry. I think we've also discovered something as well today, and that is there are Parises everywhere, right? There are Parises everywhere, from my understanding now. Paris, California, Paris, Ontario, Paris, France, Paris, Indiana. Good heavens! Well, Ontario is a city in a bunch of states, whereas a province in Canada. It's actually a Scottish place. So. All right, so we've established the narrative elements that are being told by the character. She's going to be saying, "Oh, you know, I saw this thing. It really freaked me out, man." So, next we got to figure out where we're going to go with the narrative. So, one of the things that I can do is that as we've got this picture here, which is the larger element, we can build upon that and add a second character into this narrative structure of this larger image here. But in the meantime, we can draw a couple of other characters regaling the viewer with their perspectives on what was so freaky deaky in the situation. And then that'll give us a change of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images. And the larger image is the thing that's being described from, let's say, 3 different perspectives. And that's how we can approach this page. And that sounds good. Let's try that. You know, it's that kind of thinking, right? I had no idea about Jalisco, Spain. Wow, that's cool. The oldest pharmacy in Mexico is called Perils. There you go. Guadalajara, Spain. Bunch of Miamis too. Yeah, that's right. Are you literally in Mexico City? Let's go as the state where Guadalajara is located. Nice. Okay, so let's get cracking on to another image. And let's switch to a guy. Let's switch to a guy's perspective. And okay, there's a guy. We'll do one of these. All right. Eventually, I'm going to use all the faces on this book and have to open it to draw some of the faces inside. Boy, I hope there's a lot of pages in there. I haven't looked. No, I've looked. All right, so I'm just going to do this guy's face in here, and then we'll pull it out with. So we're going to draw the deeper values first with the dark green marker. Optimus, the Optimus marker. It's a positive marker. I'm just saying, it's positive. It's downright optimistic. No. Nope. I'm in Querétaro. Please, Chris, I'm sorry for how I'm mispronouncing that. 2 hours north of Mexico City, but I was born in Mexico City, and I lived there until 2018. I think there's only one Monkey Island. No, I know for a fact there's more than one Monkey Island, which is a really weird thing to have to say. There's a Monkey Island in, well, it's where you've got, it's not Indonesia. Indonesia is predominantly the smaller islands, but there's a Monkey Island between China and Australia. What's that landmass called now? Up and down by Jakarta and everything else. There's a Monkey Island there. And in the 10,000 islands up here in Ontario, up by Algonquin, at the north part of Ontario, we have a Monkey Island in Canada. That's a ridiculous thing to realize. You know, so you got places, you got choices of places to go, Janet. And then, of course, you know, the big plaque that you have in your house that says Monkey Island. I hope you have a plaque, Janet. I'll make you a plaque, Janet. I have a sign. My old studio. I used to have a studio on the main street here in London, in the second floor studio apartment that I had, and it was the sign says Decibel Monkey Heaven, and that was what I called my studio because I like listening to music very loud, and I'm a large monkey. I know I know, but and it's paradise. It's a blessing to be able to work in a studio. So Decibel Monkey Heaven. That's what I called it. And for whatever reason, I never continued that branding anywhere else. And that was, I don't know how many years ago. Well, what a coincidence. I think I know her. There you go. There you go. I'm a smarter person for having come here today. Uh-oh. Jim. There you are. There you are. It'll be hard with around 20 million inhabitants in the metropolitan area. Oh my gosh. Oh, jeez, Louise, I missed this. I have family in Mexico City. Can you go there and look for Esperanza? She start here. Oh my gosh, everything just falls together once I figure that out. I'm such a ding dong. 20 million people. My goodness. Esperanza. Jim, the hope is the last thing you use or you lose. I'm just going to switch to the English on that one, I'm sorry. And 2 blondes, right, Chris? Yeah. Yeah, I knew another person named Chris. Believe it or not, yeah. Our youngest is Chris. When Lori and I met, she had 2, I had 3. And single parents, we dun. So her youngest was named Chris as well. I've always gone by Christopher, and people call me Chris. That's completely fine. But so rather than him getting stuck with the big Chris, little Chris thing, I'm a Christopher. He's a Chris. That's how we define it in the family. So, except for the kids, they call me Mr. Renson. I have a son named Christopher. First name is Adam. Copycat, is he? Wait a minute. You have a son named Adam? And your name's Janet? Oh my goodness. I think we know each other. Yeah, it's interesting. I have never met anyone with my last name. Because my parents divorced when I was a child, and my father's family, let's say, didn't get along. And so I've never actually met anybody with my name. And it's not very common here in Ontario, in Canada. Australia, their Greyhound bus line, or like their main bus line, is the Runsman buses. But I'm not in Australia. I think that's what it is. Somebody told me that was the case. I don't know. I've never been to Australia to find out either. Just a weird thing. My name means workhorse. I think it works. I think it applies. Is it a conspiracy? I don't know. Is Dee drawing chickens? Oh my gosh, there's the chickens. Chicken requires that, conspiracy chicken. There we go. There we are. When your wife is angry, does she say, Christopher? No. She goes like that. That's what she does. Hey. We get along pretty good. We don't, I know that some couples fight a little more often, but she scares the heck out of me, man. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing again for those that might come in late. Why is he constantly putting colors down and then rubbing them off? It's a sort of way of controlling the opacity of your values as you're putting them down. I didn't know Posca paints existed until I started watching. I became one of the fibs and started watching Dee Dee's stream. Dee Dee introduced me to Posca paints. Now what has she done? Oh, Dee Dee. Before you know it, I'm going to have 1,000 of them. I've already got 6. A 3-syllable name lets you get your point across 3 times. Lori doesn't seem like the get angry type. No. Yep, get her to visit the stream again too. Soon. I'm always asking her. I'm like, hey, you want to do the stream? She's like, no, I think I'm going to read a book. All right. I think you're more popular on my stream than I am, though. Okay. I'm really a fortunate guy. She's pretty great, and she's really encouraging and supportive. We have a meeting today at 4:30 with the publisher. So, woohoo! Very exciting stuff. Some weird, wild stuff. Huh? Ugh. Gym. My name means a place where people go to work out. Isn't that a recreation center, Jim? Is your full name Recreation Center? Names are fun. Everybody in my family has $20 handles. Even if we all amount to loose change, It's just, I don't know, some weird tradition in the family. $20 handle names. I even passed it on to my kids. Sean Thomas Runciman. Joshua Ethan Page Runciman. Big fancy names. All right, so here's our one guy coming in now. So just, again, putting these little belts of the paint in. So it's almost like as you work this way, it's kind of positive, negative, right? But it allows, if you stop looking at everything as a flat field and then build onto the flat field, and you start looking at things as different planes, then it sort of lets you find a little bit more dimension in a face. Yeah, that's a fun guy's face. Jim was the old Latin word, probably. I thought Jim was Latin. So I'll just carry that forward here. Now, one of the other things that I thought about doing was introducing a third value, outside of the primary green and yellow. I had considered incorporating some white elements into it, but I'm feeling pretty good that there's enough going on with contrast just using these two. But if I was going to add anything, I would do certain little hits with white to punch up, the cheekbones further towards the viewer and things like that. So there's our first expression. Whoa! My real, hi Tori. My real last name, which no one knows here, not Clay, is a variation of the word heron, the bird. Is that why people call you Mrs. G or Miss G? Hiya Tori, how you doing? Yeah, names are fun. I learned recently that in different cultures of the world, I didn't really understand this before until now, but in different cultures in the world, there are different names that you go by. There's a name in public, there's a name in your family, and then there's a private name in your immediate relationship, like with your partner. I found out about a place where that exists, and I thought, that's kind of cool. So, all right, so now we're going to do this drawn back expressioning, similar to this one for this guy here. So it's really, leaning heavy into if you need to visualize it when you're looking at a picture, right? Like in this case, I'm just going to do this one, right? But sometimes it helps. There's nothing wrong with that, especially in your studio on your own. Nobody gets to say anything. But, do the same thing, because you'd be amazed, the sympathetic understanding. People aren't even conscious of the fact that often, if you're drawing somebody smiling, you might unconsciously be smiling in your studio. If you're drawing somebody with an angry face, you might subconsciously have an angry face on. So somebody walks in while you're working, they're like, everything okay? It's a weird thing that we do. And once it's pointed out to you, you're going to notice it more often. I tell when I'm talking to classes and stuff, I'll tell them those things, and it's amazing how it spirals people like that. Like if okay, so there's the faces thing, right? You make the faces that you're drawing a lot of the times, but then there's also one of the first things I do in a class when I'm going in and talking to students is I'll tell them that everything can be drawn with these three shapes. And if you look around the room, you'll see them everywhere. And as soon as you realize that this is made, there's a triangular setting in the neck of the bottle. There's a rectangular shape for looking at it from the side. But if you look at it from the top down, it's a lot of circles. As soon as you make people consciously aware of something like that, you just it's almost a challenge to yourself, because as soon as you'll tell that, depending on how old the kids are, you just lost half the class. I have different names for family, job, and social media. Artful is Tori. Yep. She'll answer anything. I normally mention my name at the beginning of my stream, Susan. That's right. Yeah. Here's Janet, Arcurious. Arcurious is Miriam, Tori. It's like, this is so nice, because especially with the fact that people are wherever they are right now, and that we all get to interact and engage here, despite the time differences and despite the different localities that we live in, and of course that doesn't even touch on the different cultures and predominant cultures of where we're living, and I love it. I really do. I really appreciate it. And I feel very fortunate that people are coming and hanging out with this old weird muchacho. Again, I put the suggestion forward earlier. If anybody does have one-page ideas or notions that they think of and say, hey, this would be a fun thing to have to draw, I've got a bunch in today. A number came forward today, and that's great. I really appreciate it. This is the only one I could remember from my book, because I left my book in my van. I left the book of tricks in the van because I was sketching in it while we were going to St. Thomas the other day, because my brother-in-law's dad passed away. And I left it in the van. Irresponsibility. That's what that is. My new thing to learn is expressions on faces. We learn to paint pretty people, but not so much the expressions. If this helps, and Miriam says that's important, Susan. If this helps, Susan, I recommend finding a book like this. I'm going to move this because it's wet. I'll tell you the ISBN if it helps, guys. It's 978-0-8230-1671-6. This book is entirely full of different expressions on different faces at different ages, different shapes and cultures and ethnicities. And I like it. It's really helpful. But a book like this, where it gives you so many different expressions on it, it's a blessing. It sort of lets you explore that and lean into emotional narrative on your page. I showed a book on a stream recently. I accidentally get a nifty expression. I'm so happy. Oh, I completely understand that. I showed a book on my stream the other day of a guy named Kevin McGuire. And Kevin McGuire is, in my opinion, easily the best artist for expressive faces in sequential literature, like in all of specifically comics. He manages to add this sort of realistic texture and this additional level of engagement and characterization because everybody is emoting. People in the background are emoting, like with their hands, with their faces. It's great. Save for reference. Thanks. Yeah. Just tuning in between script and stuff. Looks rad. Thanks very much, Joshua Kimball. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, there's a good cat. I like that guy. Josh is good people. He's just doing some great work. He's working on his new book right now. And Josh, if you're still here and you want to tell people what the title of it is, because I don't want to do you a disservice by getting it wrong. Not Death But Love. Right? I think you have to type it all out. That'll teach you for having a long title. I don't know. But it's really nice. On his stream, he does, each stream, he's sort of walking you through whatever his next stage is on the next page, and it's really good. It's good work. You got it. That is not Death But Love. Okay, excellent. Yeah, it's wonderful. Oh, there we go. Oh, he's scripting a different top secret pitch project right now. Nice. J-Boys. The J-Boys are Josh and Jim. This is how they greet each other. It's better than kicking. Okay, so we're pulling this facial expression out of this character, to the same scale as the previous image. You know, if you're going to have side-by-sides with characters on a page of the same person, you either want to do a very different transition in scale or try to keep them the same. But don't just kind of, because it assists the viewer in understanding that this is the consistency of rhythm when the pages are or when the panels are similar in size, and this gives you more movement and energetic flow than when you show them, you know, here I am talking at this scale, and then the next panel I'm at that scale, you know. So, just some thoughts, just some unhappy thoughts. By sticking to these colors that are rooted in the background of the jelly-plated paper, it sort of gives you a start to each image that you're putting down, because there's already some of those values in the place in each one of those. You're in the wrong room, Josh. No J-girls allowed. What are you talking about? I want to be a J-girl. So just filling out this remaining bit of structure in the shape of the head. A little bit of contouring around the ears just to more clearly bring them forward off the background. Similar to how I put this yellow line around the character up at the top, I'll do something similar to this just to make them float up from the background surface. And sometimes it helps to have a value, a clearly distinct value that separates them from that. A lot of thinky thunking in this old doodly doing thing, this drawing is drawn jazz. But again, as I usually say, it's more about having fun and exploring story as you go. I'm not a firm adherent to the rules. I'm a big proponent to pushing the form or experimenting with the form. There's all kinds of material I've shown you, even some today, that I appreciate that there's an underlying rule or structure to how they went about telling the story. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to, you can't do that on a page. You shouldn't be able to draw that. Or if you're doing it, you have to do it this way. I don't believe in any of those things. The whole reason that we have flight today is because somebody said, I'm going to go a different way. Really loving the jelly plate backgrounds on these last few pages. Really adds a great texture. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it like I said earlier, it sort of lets you already be started your drawing because of so much that it gives you to work with. Susan says, Christopher, I bet you were drawing cartoons in class instead of studying. Jelly plate boys. There we go. I was drawing in class, but I'm a gigantic nerd. So I was that annoying kid that looked distracted, and if you tried to call him out on it, I could look up and answer the math question. I'm a nerd. So it's kind of like you just have to let your brain switch tracks, right? You see, again, this is one of those things where it maybe I'm afforded the ability to do that, and I recognize that other people have a challenge doing that. Of course, they got things that they can do that I can't, but I've just always been able to do that. Just been a nerdy guy from birth, I guess. I'm excused. I've been excused. Yeah, no, I was dutiful in school, but I was that kid that didn't bring home homework. My sister, she needed a little more time doing things, so she needed to bring homework home and to work out the same stuff. I had an older sister that I skipped a year and she fell back a year. And so unfortunately, we were in the same school year together from grade 3 on. And I say it's unfortunate because it's really, that's not fair. That's not fair. It's a challenge in the first place where you've got kids with different strengths, right? But it's not fair that, here it is at least there were 2 different classes for each grade at this school. But just the knowledge that your much younger brother is in the same class and you or is in the same grade as you is not healthy for the other child. So, but yeah, super dork. Mind you, my sister was a tough chick, so she protected me on the schoolyard, and then when I said thank you, she'd say, "Shut up, jerk," and she'd push me to the ground. So that's older sisters for you. Somebody once told Christopher to follow art rules once. And that teacher told me that once. Yeah. Joe Piscopo. Yeah, I did that, Susan. One of my comic books circulated the classroom without being confiscated. That's fantastic. I did my homework as I copied the task at school, and I also could be distracted, but I knew everything the teacher said. Yeah, definitely. Nerds. And it stuck. Christopher was born a full-grown man. No. I was small. I was always a smaller guy. And then I hit puberty when I turned 16. I was a late bloomer. But I made up for lost time. I grew inches in 1 year, and that's not comfortable. It's very sore because your whole body is stretching and doing whatnot. Okay, so we've got her perspective now about what's going to go in this panel. We've got his perspective now about what's going to go in this panel. And then we're going to put a third person in for what their perspective is that, again, is going to go in this panel. So This way, the whole point of sequential literature is that you want the viewer to read, a rhythmic approach or some kind of happening of dialogue and happening of an interaction of textual dialogue and visual elements. And if you lean one direction of more complicated art and more informative art, you need to lean less into the whole words to describe the same thing. If you're very descriptive, you don't need to have as intricate the art, So it's all about finding that play and that balance. But if you can establish repetition to some extent, and it doesn't necessarily mean multiple faces of the same character, I just mean a number of things happening over space and time, then you get into the flow. And so a person can look at this page and follow through its narrative structure, but the next page, once you flip that paper to the next thing, well, then you can go a different direction completely with that structure. So kind of like the one-page comics, but they're unrelated, one-page stories. Susan says, your poor mother. My newborn has teeth. Yes, I'm 32. I'm 39, Susan. My oldest child is 32. The math works if you don't think about it. All right, so we're going to put a third character down. I have two options here. I can either do a third character, or I can have the first character say something and then the second character say something else. But here's a fun thing about scanning your images of your art. And if you have a scanner, this works for you. If you don't, consider it at some point. If you want to do storytelling and sequential storytelling, because if I scan my work, I can duplicate this panel, the visual elements of this panel, a number of times and put different text above it to make this beat, this snap, this rhythm longer before I switch to this new snap or new rhythm and do a multiple of those panels if I want. That's the fun thing about storytelling in this way, is that the time metering of it and the amount of affordance that you give for how much you can say in a page. I was going to say verbosity, and I thought, take it easy. For how much you can say in a page, you can afford that by giving yourself the ability to have more time for more panels to continue on a notion. Now, there's a real problem in a lot of contemporary comics of talk pages and nothing happening. So again, if at the very least you can establish a number of different panels or a number of different visual elements and have repetition mixed through that, at least you're giving the viewer the substantial changes of maybe the emotions or substantial changes of expressions for each of the ideas. So. Oh, Crystal has that comic from high school. Oh my gosh. Would you say people get jelly when they look at this? When they look at this page? And Josh, I don't think they're ready for this jelly. 32 teeth. Oh. Ouch. Time is the superpower of comics. Yeah. Well, it's not just comics, though. Time is this is why I call it sequential literature instead of comics, or because what Jim does specifically, and Jim, I'm going to point you out. I hope you don't mind. What Jim does with animation is exactly the same thing. The difference between animation, there's two differences between animation and comics. One is movement, and two is sound. It's two additional elements on top of the underlying similar principle of, the physical the images, like the actual emotional expressions on characters or not, and what the text actually is. But the difference with animation is that text and the sounds can be added in, and it doesn't have to be and a big word balloon pictures above the head with the words floating in space. So I kind of like the idea that time works in all sequential media. It's the sort of thing that once you start realizing that when you're writing a story, whether it's a screenplay or a script for a television or a film or a one-page story or an extended story, you can do so much with an extended story. If you've got one page, you can have a moment or you can have an entire epic. But if you've got 4 pages, you can just set it up in the easiest way possible, and that is context or the introduction, the characters, the scene, or the dilemma. 2 is what I call the conflict. So once you've introduced the and again, these rules aren't hard and fast, but if you take 4 pages and you got 1 page for the context and the characters, the second page introduces the conflict or whatever that, I'm going to the store to get some milk. And page 2 is, I forgot to bring my wallet, right? And page 3 is the guy says, don't worry about it. I know you're good for it. Get me tomorrow. And page 4 is, I get home with my milk. So you've got your context, you've got your conflict, you got your climax, and you've got your conclusion. So you can do so much more with the accommodation of 4 pages over 1. But all story inherently breaks down like that. Drawing the same person with different expressions, how to make sure the viewer recognizes that person. Try to source numerous images of the same person. This is where a book like the one I showed helps out. Or try to express that a principle to it. Like the page that I did yesterday, maybe? This page is, the suggestion was letters versus numbers as characters. And so, hey, he says, okay, so in the beginning, there was the letter A. And then in the second panel, it says, in the beginning, there was the number 1. And then this guy says, hey, visually, that's his visual element. But in the balloon, it says, what did he just say? And then 1, 2, 3 walks up to Hey and says, you got a problem with it, pal? And so Hey has now switched to, oh yeah. And so the visual elements of this character continue to change. He changes next to oh. And then when he picks a fight with a guy, he says, rawr. And the difference is in the transitional changes physically of 1, 2, 3 is there's 1, 2, 3 in this regard. But then when it says, oh yeah, you want to go, it's where it's sort of puffing up its chest, or the 3 is climbing up on top of the 1, 2. So it's almost like it's rearing back and calls out its big buddy number 9. But when rar attacks, when the letter character attacks, the numbers are falling back, as is the number 9 number. So even though that these aren't a recognizable face or a portrait of a face, the idea stands the same because of the positioning for the character, even though the characters are actively changing, and objectively, somebody looks at it and understands that the active changes each panel is the emotion. There will be somebody out there that looks at that and goes, oh yeah, right? And everybody else goes, Christopher, it's way too complicated, man. So you can try different things, but my point is, don't be too worried about it, right? If it looks relative to the one before, great. If it doesn't, well, you just did your best. Maybe the next time it does look a little more closer by comparison, right? Like this, I had to change the shape of her head to be more similar to the shape of her head in the first panel. That makes it more recognizable from one to the next. So, idea, a choose your own adventure page where you can change the story by rearranging the panels. I have a book of that, Josh. I actually have an entire book of that. I'll get it. Just one second. Well, it's not a choose your own adventure. Oh my goodness, this bookshelf's too big. Okay, so this is, in my mind, one of the finest examples of sequential comic or sequential literature that I've ever seen. So I reckon you define things like the hairline, the chin, the nose, etc. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why not? Yeah. Miriam says, very clever. Oh, thanks, Miriam. I love that numbers versus letters. Incredibly clever. Oh, thanks, Tori. That's nice. I like the number letter idea, but it seems like work to me. You know, it's not if you're having fun. Anyways, this is, now I'm going to mispronounce it. It's Pascal Jousseline. I don't know. Mr. Invincible knows his superpower is that he knows he's in a comic. So he has the facility to move through the panels at will, right? So he looks down here as he sees these hoods are about to mug this lady and her son. So he jumps from this panel and knocks the guy out. And then when the second guy pulls a gun, he gets knocked out in this panel from down below. Where did that? You see, the narrative continues as though it's normal. It's him that's transitionally changing what's happening. Where did that? I don't get it. It's just the incredible magic of comics, ma'am. So as the guy's knocked out, he picks his gun up and knocks the guy out with his own gun. And then he shoots this space where he holds the gun up in the air and destroys the gun. So no more problem. Every page in this book is a little adventure like that. And every one of them, he defies the conventions of the panel by panel page. And then on top of that, it starts introducing other characters. There's one character who can move through the pages. And so how that goes is, I got to show you that. That's the spatial difference guy first. Okay, this bad guy, try and stop me, but remember, I'm your nightmare because I'm everywhere. Ha-ha, Jester signing out. Oh, and one more thing. My mark isn't an orange wedge. It's an evil smile, you morons. Right? So, but when you flip this page, okay, so the opposite side of the same paper in the book, right, is where you've got him peeking through. Let me see if I can find it. No, maybe that's not this one. No, this is where he's just moving in out. It's further ahead where he starts actually, yeah, right here, where he actually starts walking through. So here he is running through with the kid in this panel, and there he is with the kid under his arm in that panel, and on the other side, right here, and right there. And he starts doing this all the time. See, he's sticking his head through the back, and his head's popping out on this side. So this whole book is messing with your brain, right? But if you're, depending on the degree of sophistication, as we read more and more things, we want more and more complexity. This guy doesn't understand scale. Right? It's math, man. I'll show you. Okay, slow time. So he picks up this tree and drops it. It says 2D power, and bends this lamppost. And what he doesn't have appreciation for is the other people in the narrative. So here are these guys, and then suddenly, the tree's being picked up. The tree's being picked up by this guy who's trying to stick it back in the ground and correct his mistakes. I mean, the ISBN number for this book is 978-1-942367-61-1. This is easily, in my mind, one of the greatest comics ever made. Magnetic Press. Yeah. So the Choose Your Own Adventure, where you can, change the story by rearranging panels. You got to look him up. You look up that guy's work, because there's nothing I could do that could come comparatively close, or would just emulate what he's doing. I don't want, but I'm gonna write it down anyways. So then maybe I'll figure something different. Choose Your Own Adventure. Where change story by rearranging panels. There's a person who can change the color in the panels. There's a villain that jumbles the story. That's the rearranging panels part. But he jumbles the story from the narrative, though. So maybe there's an opening for the visual stuff. Thank you for that, Josh. That's great. Am I caught up? Love that concept. Yeah, there's so many great ideas in books. It's just about finding the right book. It's just about finding that um, there's something out there, that's gonna scratch the itch for everybody. But it's just a case of looking out there and seeing it. Like I fell across that book one day, and I've told everybody that's ever shown an interest in that sort of thing. I tell them about, you got to find this book. It's amazing. I've read it to my grandkids a couple times. Okay, so Fear in the Streets. So here's our two narrative for this person, two narrative for that person. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm now going to cross the two over to each other, and I'll draw a third panel of her, a third expression of her, and a third expression of him, and that walks us over to the larger image. Okay, so we'll do one more where we've got her response, one more response out of her, and I think I'll go for, yeah. Let me think. I'll do a turned expression. Susan says, "Comics have changed. They kind of haven't. These sort of books have kind of always existed. The difference is finding them. Like in the 1950s, there was a great wealth of fantastic books in the romance market and in the spy books. You had fantastic artists like Al Williamson, and I'm trying to think of who did, Noel Sickles is another one. I'm trying to think of who did Modesty Blaze. But there's a lot of books and stories by creators with a lot of complexity to it. And a lot of the European comics were really exploring alternate ways of expression starting in around the 60s, and like guys like Mobius and Jodorowsky and so, Jean Girard is Mobius, in case you'll find him by looking up Moebius, you'll see. But they were trying alternative ideas, but it's not the superhero books that were doing it. It was largely the alternative market books. It was like romance books did so much for throwing away panel by panel conventions. And they would just experiment so much with, the text all interlinked in the panel with the boy and the girl. Oh, how do I tell Roger that I don't love him? I love his brother. And he's standing behind her going, how do I tell Marjorie that it's her sister that I want to be with? But meantime, there's all this crazy stuff going on in the back. So I got to go see you on Friday. See you on Friday, Chris. Thanks for hanging out. Eisner used to call the Silver Age Red of superhero comics the comic ghetto. Yeah, it really was sort of a lot of uniformity, and it followed the Weisinger era. I'm sorry, I apologize. It followed the in the 1950s. There was that whole thing where William Werther Marston, I think it is. He basically went to the congressional level of court with putting comics on trial for being a corruptive influence on children. And just for the record, he was in a polygamous relationship. His wife and they had a young woman that lived with them. And this same guy is the guy, by the way, who had created Wonder Woman, who was tied up and captured in every story and had to break break out of her ropes or whatever she was bound by, and had a rope that she would constantly be tying people up. So he wasn't exactly a wholesome, clean, pure guy, but he was very subversive. But he did everything he could to eliminate a lot of the comic books that he just didn't like. And that was a lot of the crime stuff, the war stuff, the horror stuff. And that was in the 1950s. But what they were doing there with a lot of those stories, and the science fiction specifically, was really pushing the avenue on story in ways that we had never had facilitated before. Even the pulps didn't come close to touching it. So Soap operas in print. Yep, you're not wrong at all. Yeah, comics have a long history, arguably dating back to cave paintings and telling a wide variety of stories. Oh no, of course. But I'm just talking about the specific in-print stuff of the last 150 years. Great book on that, the 10-cent plague. Oh yeah, definitely. That's a good book. I've read that. I like that. That's a good reference, man. So we read the same stuff. Will Eisner said, "Whether you're a mother or whether you're a brother, you're staying alive, staying alive." I don't believe that was him. I believe that was John Travolta. Same as marijuana. You tell by the way Eisner used his walk. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Eisner's Spirit comics in the 1930s. Eisner is the first guy that they collected a continuous single story as a graphic novel. That was William Eisner. But he created a character in the 1930s, and he changed the conventional panel-to-panel interpretation of story, because his first pages would generally be a large splash image, and the text was usually incorporated into the image. So it'd be like the writing for the title would be embedded in the side of a brick wall, like just crazy stuff. So he's a kind of span of time. He's a long span. What have you guys done to each other? Okay, so I'm going to carry on. We'll do the last image here of each of these two, and get this stuff down, and then we're on to well, then the last thing I'll have to do is this half the panel, but I think I'm gonna call it before I do that. We've gone on a little longer than I normally do today, but I think there's a lot of great discussion going on. I'm very appreciative of everybody for that. You know, kind of cool bunch of folks. You're a bunch of cool people. So you're just looking at one of these small reference images again, and then just trying to pull some story emotional connection together by drawing this person who allows the viewer to an assistance in understanding what they're emoting. So, or understanding how to emote the text that's being written is what I think I meant there. If anybody ever has questions, feel free to shout them at me. Well, don't shout at me. I'm sensitive and I get scared. I'm not as tough as I used to be. I shaved my chin whiskers off. First time in 10 years. What's that? You brush more. You're out of control. Amazing how many things cause the ruination of youth. Nectar Socrates. Ruination is a great word. I read it in Arnold voice. Ruination. There you go. I say, be excellent to each other and party on. Oh my gosh. I took the kids to see the new Bill and Ted film in the theater. I think it was just before COVID and everything. They did not get it at all. I even tried to get them to watch the first two. I couldn't get them through that. It's sad. Oh, what is wrong with the youth of today? Hard. That's hard too to do a sequel like that, because it was really impressive that they had George Carlin as Rufus. It's a really impressive film when you think about it just being a failed Doctor Who script, eh? For those that didn't know, that's what the actual instance was. That was supposed to be a Doctor Who movie for North America. And then the studio realized, yeah, no, the British conventions for Doctor Who do not work in North America. So can it be its own thing? And so the redraft of it, so from the what do you call that? The pilot idea, or when they're just putting forward the synopsis of what the project is and it doesn't sell, so they just retooled it into a different film. Susan says I'm 68, I know. Embarking on a most excellent adventure. Yeah, so strange things are afoot at the Circle K. Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at Doctor Who, time traveler in a phone booth, and comes to these young people and says, something happens in time, we got to fix that. And so he brings these humans into the phone booth, and they go through time and space and meet all these historical characters, and and fight against this evil anarchic organization that is based on a ridiculous premise. In this case, it's the high school teacher, the gym teacher, the German guy. Bill and Ted is it's Doctor Who, but Rufus is the Doctor's not the feature; it's the companions that are the feature. So, isn't that fun? You also know that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was a Doctor Who script, right? No. These are the changes, right? The phone booth isn't bigger on the inside, except for it is, because you fit 9 people in it for that last scene. So there is a compression of space in it, right? Like, because for the last scene when they appear on the stage, there's all those people inside. So yeah, and then Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is Arthur Dent, the human being, gets brought to space by Ford Prefect. So the difference being is that they're not hitchhiking in the initial plot idea because Douglas Adams was a writer for Doctor Who, and these were ideas that he had for a bunch of episodes for Doctor Who, and the show, they switched the creative lineup, and so he went off and did it on his own, and it became a radio play. But yeah, it's Ford Prefect is the alien from outer space that takes Arthur Dent to have an adventure out in the stars and meets all these crazy characters. It's written by Douglas Adams, who was a writer for Doctor Who, and it's a lot of Doctor Who ideas. I noticed 2 of them are cramped, and then they all get in. Yeah, isn't that fun? It's just defies logic, but that's the whole point of the TARDIS in Doctor Who. I think that Doctor Who works best when the Doctor is old. The more elderly and curmudgeonly the Doctor is, there's been this whole move to be young and handsome, and now the current one is a lady, and it just sort of takes one step away from some of the real hits of what it was when it was back in the day when he was just this grumpy, irritable jerk who knew it all. Anyways, I'm off on that tangent. Listen, I appreciate everybody coming out today. Douglas Adams wrote patient abuse for Monty Python, too. Yes, he did. Did not know that. Massive fan of Hitchhiker's Guide and all the following books and shows. Yeah, good stuff. Tomorrow on the stream, I will show the 6th book in the Doctor Who series that was not written by Douglas Adams that most people don't know about. Okay, I'm going to sign off for now, though. I've been going for a while. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate everybody coming out and hanging out and interacting in the stream and all the suggestions that are coming today. It's awesome. Give this a try, the jelly plating thing, and then drawing on top of it a try. And I'll have this posted for tomorrow on Instagram and Facebook and all that jazz. And I'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock to work on a new page. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Thanks so much, everybody. Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.